overview of the construction of the building. I will say that it has been a diligent study to understand how this building was built over time. We've come to know it pretty well through our study of the existing drawings and through visiting the school. And so I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of how this all started. So the original building was constructed in 1937, and it's in that area of pink that's shown on the diagram. There's also an aerial below to kind of orient everybody. North is to the right, to the right-hand side of the image. And at that time, it was a very traditional school, built as 2 stories, about 5,170 square feet of floor. And we have a mechanical basement that was constructed. It's masonry bearing walls, which are exterior brick and a clay tile structural brick inside. There's no insulation in the exterior walls at all. There's a concrete floor structure which has then wood flooring put over the top of that. And at the top, we have wood rafters and a deck over the top of that. Those are all combustible, which is a concern we'll talk about later. And there is some roof insulation in the sense that in the attic space that exists between the second floor ceiling and the roof rafters up above, there's some blown in cellulose. So there is some insulation, at least at the attic space. So we started at about 11,000 square feet worth of construction. So in 1957, some 20 years later, another 2-story addition was put to the south and east of the 1937 addition. And that included space for a gymnasium at the second floor, and there were locker rooms and a small cafeteria at the first floor in the original construction. Again, masonry bearing walls, 12-inch concrete block with a brick veneer at the exterior, steel beams and concrete with a metal deck at the second floor, and the roof then is long span steel trusses with tectum roof panels. And I'm not sure everyone's familiar with tectum, but it is a wood fiber material that's bound together with a concrete slurry, a kind of a binding slurry. And that was a very common construction practice in those days. And those panels are then set up top of the steel trusses. Again, no insulation is included at the exterior walls. And there's also no insulation at the roof, which we'll talk about later. So once again, that was really not a concern during the time that these buildings were constructed. Hold on before I do that. So now with that addition, we're up to, with a 12,000 square foot addition, we're up to about 24,000 square feet of constructed space in 1957. 69 then was a single-story construction, a significant addition, about 22,000 square feet. So we're doubling the size of the facility. And it was a masonry bearing wall building with 8-inch CMU, but in this case, we do have some rigid insulation included in the exterior wall structure. Again, the steel joists and the tectum roof panels were used, but there was a little bit of rigid insulation over the top of that roof, so there is some insulation there. Very interesting here, we found out that this was originally had electrical resistance heat. So all of the building, although the 1937 and 57 continued to be heated with oil-fired boilers, in 69 was all electrical. So there was a large electrical service added to the building and significant switchgear added for the 1969 edition. And that electrical room sits right here in this corner of the building. So the real large transformation to the kind of mission of the educational mission of the school and the building itself happened in 1989 with a multifaceted addition and renovation project, which added another 32,000 square feet to the building, bringing us up to almost 80,000 square feet of constructed space. Most of it was 1-story, but there was at the, if you see area 2 right there, right adjacent to 1937, this is the 2-story addition that was added. But we had a library, a classroom wing, this was administrative space, and those are, we're calling areas 2, 3, and 4 as they're identified in the original design documents for this piece of the building. The exterior walls of all of these areas, 2, 3, and 4, are open webs. They're steel joists, and they have fiberglass bat integrated in between the steel joists. And so there is some, R19 would be the nominal value of the R value of the insulation in those walls. But with those steel joists, as we'll discuss later, the steel framing, sorry, that brings down the R value, effective R value significantly. Here now we're using open web steel joists at the roof with a metal deck and rigid, 4 inches of rigid. At this time, there was a significant change to the way the building was addressed mechanically. The electrical heating was removed, and an oil-fired boiler was then added to the 1937 basement that then served the entire complex. So the second part of this then is what we call Area 5, which is the large addition for the gymnasium, and then the main entry point, the vestibule, and the reception lobby for the whole school. And those used, rather than using the steel framing at the walls, the gymnasium used CMU, again, concrete block with rigid exterior insulation. Other things that this really changed was there was an outside air active ventilation system added with rooftop units and other heat recovery units, providing dedicated mechanical ventilation to the interior of the building. Previous to that time, that had not been provided. Also, some areas of limited sprinkler coverage were added, and fire alarm and detection were added at that time. So the final addition then happened in 2007 with the addition of the wood chip heating plant. And again, these were CMU walls with brick veneer, and in this case used 1.5 inches of spray applied closed cell foam. So we're getting better in terms of our insulation systems as time is progressing. That's a much more effective insulation method. But again, open web steel joists, metal deck, and now 6 inches of rigid board insulation. So that gives everyone an idea of the overall development of the school.